Welcome, adventurers. Today on Rebel Then King, we're continuing building out parties using only one class, and we are continuing to take a look at classes that have been kind of popular demands, popular requests in comments in previous builds. This is another one that surprises me a little bit with its popularity, though then again, not, because it's the monk, and most people would agree that the Pathfinder 2nd Edition monk is the best iteration of monk that has been in any role-playing game. I think it is an understated martial. It doesn't often appear on people's top class lists, but it is quite a formidable class. It's very flexible. It's very fun. Great action economy. This is a game where action economy is absolutely vital, so this class is going to excel. This is also, I'm doing this back to back with the witch build, which was complicated because prepared spellcasters with familiars that also need preparation. And here we have a bunch of single attribute dependent, no subclass, one class feat, some spells, but not many spells, and almost never any weapons or other gear to worry about builds. This one is going to be quick. Let's start where I always start, with the hammer. Hey, I didn't choose a Colo this time. Go me. But I did choose a Dwarf, which I think I've done multiple times as well. I went with a Laborer, and the ancestry, the heritage is what I meant to say, is the Elemental Heart Dwarf. I went with that because this gives you the energy emanation ability. Once per day, energy bursts forth from your body, dealing 1d6 damage of your chosen type to all adjacent creatures. So if you are going to be the holding the center line creature or party member, this is a great ability to blast everything nearby once a day. I went with the Rock Runner Ancestry feat. Doesn't do too much, but in some situations would allow you to ignore some difficult terrain, which is going to be good with this slow build. Not only are you a dwarf, but we are taking the class feat Mountain Stance. You basically become a big, immovable block of stone. You gain a +4 item bonus to AC, which we'll take a look at and why that's so important, plus a +2 circumstance bonus to any defense against reposition, shove, trip, and other force movements. And your speeds are reduced by 5 feet. So monks are typically pretty quick. This monk is not. But it is a very strong monk. Our ability scores, we have a +4 strength, +3 con, and then +2 wisdom. Why +2 wisdom? To help out with initiative so that we can get into this mountain stance and boost our armor class. Because as it is now, we have a pretty low armor class. But we also have 23 hit points, which is not bad. In mountain stance, as I already said, it's very helpful for your armor class. And then you gain these D8 attacks. So you're going to be dealing a D8 +4 with Flurry of Blows, so like 2 strikes every single round at least. And then those bonuses against being tripped or shoved. Fantastic. And then skill training, I went with some crafting because, it's a dwarf. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here and talk about the next monk, who is an anvil/professional. Now, the anvil position is where I most often see monk because, yes, they are reliable in melee, but because they are dealing typically unarmed strikes without super extra abilities, they don't tend to hit all that hard. They're not dealing D12 +4 strength plus some other rage damage, for example, but they're still tough. This is a human barkeep. You see where I'm going here? Of course, where I'm going is this is using this stumbling stance. I did use skilled human and natural ambition, so I'm sorry, I am choosing human abilities, but I got kind of excited about this build and I just wanted to do it. So, just give it to me this one time, I suppose. The ability scores here. We have a +4 dex, max dex, +2 charisma, because this is a little bit of a, it's the barkeep. They're charismatic. And then a +1 strength to add a little bit of extra damage to our strikes. The ancestry feat I also use to pick up key spells, picking up inner upheaval, so that we can have that extra damage burst with the flurry of blows with the extra +1 status bonus to the attack rolls and dealing an extra d6 damage. Not bad. The class feat, Stumbling Stance. You get a +1 circumstance bonus to deception checks to feint. So that is why I also went with some charisma on this build. You also gain 1d8 strikes, and if an enemy hits you with a melee strike while in this stance, it becomes off guard against the next stumbling swing strike you make against it before the end of your next turn. So this is a great character for getting toe-to-toe with an enemy and staying there, which, a lot of times with monks, I actually recommend kiting in and out and moving around, but this is one where you'd actually want to stand and you're kind of rope-a-doping people, so it's going to be very fun. And then due to having this super high dexterity, I made sure that this character is trained in stealth and thievery, which I think also, maybe they're sneaking off to the back of the bar after hours for an extra bottle or something like that, right? Let's take a look at the other anvil in this party. We have a Kobold. I don't think I've used a Kobold in any of these builds yet. It's an acrobat, so this is a cute little scamp running around. The heritage, I went with Venom Tail Kobold, which we'll talk about, and the ancestry feat of Scamper. I went with Kobold because they're cute, but they're vicious. I mean, they're so cute, right? The heritage. You can add a little bit of poison damage with this, though you might think, hold on a second, doesn't this say you are wielding a piercing or slashing weapon, but this is a monk? Well, that's why I went with monastic weaponry for this build. That is the class feat I picked up. As part of this, I am getting a bow staff for reach plus trip plus parry to do debuffing and to help out your defenses even more, but then also a temple sword to use with the Venom Tail or for an alternate damage type, and it also has trip. Also, because of these two trip abilities, I did make this a +4 strength and only a +3 dex build, so that you have the maximum athletics score to try to land those trips. That is sort of the anvil thing that this build is doing, is tripping. And then as far as skill training goes, I went with the charisma-based skills here as well. So we have two pretty charismatic anvils in this party, I guess. We're already on to the last build, which is the Cannon Monk. I went with the Lizardfolk. It is a hunter. And why I did this, because, well, the Lizardfolk gives me the hunter vibes I want, and also it has a great set of attribute boosts. Strength, wisdom, and then free. So I, went dexterity there, I believe. Yep. The heritage, I went with the Wetlander Lizardfolk because having a swim speed is always good. Always a good thing to have in a party. And then the ancestry feat, I went with bone magic to gain access to stabilize, which I do a lot in these builds. I'm realizing is gain access to stabilize because not dying is important. The ability scores here, max dex. Oh, that sweet 19 AC that you could get on a monk. Secondary max wisdom, because you guessed it, we're going to be trained in medicine and do some healing with this build. And then I did go with a +2 strength. Why? Well, this is an archer. I have picked up monastic archer stance. You can't afford a composite short bow at level 1. I think there are 14 gold pieces, and you're going to need your adventurer's kit and also a healer's toolkit with this build. So you'll have a regular bow, but pretty shortly you'll be able to upgrade to a composite short bow, which will allow you to add with 2 points of strength here, to add 1 point of damage to your strikes with that bow. So this is going to help out the cannon abilities of this class even more. So that is, of course, I needed a cannon, and they just give you a great cannon ability here in Monastic Archer Stance for the monk. As far as the skill training goes, I went with wisdom skills like survival, nature, and medicine, because this is a high wisdom build. And those are the 4 builds already. So what works well about this party? Well, this is always what I say about the monk, but you have defenses. Now, I didn't go all dex on these builds, so I actually only have 2 19 AC builds. But, I mean, look at these armor classes. So this one will go up to 19, 23, so 19 AC, 23 hit points. That's good. A 19 and 19, another 19 and 19, and then an 18 and 16. This is the weakest of them, but still, that's a great set of defenses. And then keep in mind, all of the expert proficiency saves in this party as well means you're not going to take a lot of damage, which is good, because I'm going to jump to a bad right away. You have no in-combat healing whatsoever in this party. The monk, you can heal yourself. That is one of the focus spells, but I got to remember, is that a level 2 focus spell? I don't even think you can get that at level 1. And there's no abilities to heal others, at least at level 1 with this party, without picking up something else. Though I will say, back to the good, is you can afford gear. We have multiple characters in here that didn't need to buy anything. No armor. I mean, they'll need an adventurer's tool or a kit, because you I always play like that standard, and you just need that. But there's no weapons, no armor for any of these. You need 1 healer's toolkit, a bow, and then there was that staff and temple sword, which means you can afford some healing potions because you're going to need them. Other great things about this party. Well, since you are all monks and you all have Flurry of Blows, you have 16 actions per round. Just think about that. Now, it's not 16 actions, I know, but with Flurry of Blows being 2 activities that normally would take 2 actions, I'm just counting that. This means you are probably never going to be stuck with the classic conundrum that a lot of parties are of, I just can't get where I want to go. I can't get into the flank, where you have to choose between, 2 lesser options because you can't do the ideal option because you don't have enough actions and you need to do something. You probably are not going to have to do that with this party, which is fantastic. Other great things about it, you're gonna, we've got all the damage and all the combat rolls. Maybe needs a little more buffing, but you've got burst damage with that key spell. You've got cannon damage with range with the monastic archer. You've got some D8 damage. You've got that stumbling stance for standing in the pocket. You've got all combat rolls. You're set. The bad. We already talked about no in combat healing. You are light on skills overall. It's mostly a dex and strength party with a little bit of charisma, a little bit of wisdom. We don't have a lot of intelligence, so we're not going to be speaking a lot of languages or being good at crafting, but you'll do fine. And I mean, frankly, it usually seems that the, combat skills are what keep you alive, and exploration skills can make combat a little bit easier. So if you're really good at punching things, sometimes you don't need to be good at exploration, which might be the way that this party gets by. Not to say that it's, we're not a bunch of dwarves who didn't offset their charisma penalty and we're just walking around with -1 charisma and no skills or anything like that. But compared to some of the parties I've looked at recently, like the witch party and the rogue party, especially those two back to back here, you are light on skills. That being said, this party absolutely slaps. It would be so fun. I really like that There were a few choices to make in the class feats, but overall it felt pretty automatic. Like I knew I wanted a monastic weapons and a monastic archer. Just obvious choices. The other two spend a little bit more time deciding, but it's also going to be, I should add another good. This is an easy party. I feel like I am drawing this video out longer than it needs to be because most of these there's not all that much to talk about, especially compared to the witch or the wizard videos. You have slight differences in the way you punch things or shoot things from range, and then there is the monastic weaponry with this venom tail, which is about the most complicated you get. But man, compared to everything else, monk is just sort of simple, but still really, really good.